And hi again, everybody. Welcome to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, a sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio. I'm Jason Gibbs. No Bo Bishop. He's on assignment. No Nathan Zagura. He's on assignment, Uno. No Ocho. He's on assignment. Although I think he's flying back. I think I might have to go pick him up at the airport later today.
He should be on his way now, yeah.
Great. Perfect. Yours truly with you till 3 o'clock today. Also, Uno manning the controls. He'll contribute. Nick Paulus is on his own 850 ESPN Cleveland Marathon. He will join us throughout the show. Nick Shook, friend of the program, great friend of the program from NFL.com and the NFL Network, will join us. Yellowstone is spinning the dials. He's got like creative documents and things he's going to put up on the screen throughout the day, or maybe things that I can only see. I don't know. We really didn't discuss that, but Yellowstone's been hard at work today when he's not in meetings, getting ready for today's show. So Nick Shook will join us at 2:30. Coming up at 2 o'clock, a little higher or lower. At 1:15, thing or not a thing, involving basically franchise tag or not franchise tag with some of the opponents in our division and around the National Football League. And at 1:40 today, Nathan Zagura did give us a little parting gift before he went on assignment. And our position reviews continue with a look at the offensive line, interior line, the tackle position, and also the coaching changes. You just heard Tony Grossi before the start of this show talking about it in one of the ESPN Cleveland promos, replacing Bill Callahan and also replacing Scott Peters. It's a room that's going to undergo quite a bit of change potentially here in 2024, and Zagura will break that down for us as well. The offseason is officially here, but only for another week. And then things really get dialed up once again. And we're going to go through that right now. Beginning today at 4 o'clock. There we go. Look, Yellowstone. Huge. That's big. Wonderful. Good job by you. I wish you had a microphone, but you still wouldn't use it because you don't want to ever be on the show. It's fine. It's great. No big deal. Beginning today through 4 o'clock on March 5th, clubs may designate franchise or transition players. The Browns, not really anyone that they need to tag, but they will be impacted by what other teams do. Obviously, the Bengals and T. Higgins is something that everybody in the NFL is watching. A lot of people just assuming that will happen. He will be franchise tagged, and then the Bengals, if they cannot sign him to an extension, will look to make a trade. Obviously, they're not going to trade T. Higgins to anybody in their division, which would be the AFC North, Baltimore, Cleveland, and, of course, the Pukers. Again, it's a great little barometer as we get ready for free agency that comes up in about 3 weeks from now. A week from today, it is travel day for us. Uno's going. Ocho's going. Tequila Fila's going. Oh, yeah, that Bishop and that Zagura guy. They're going to go too. And we will be live from the NFL Scouting Combine 1 week from today from Indianapolis Radio Row. I keep thinking today's a Monday. It's actually a Tuesday.
It feels a lot like Monday. This whole weekend was a mess in terms of knowing what day it is.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Thursday was Friday. Friday was Saturday.
1 week, this coming Monday, we're traveling. And then 1 week from today, we come to you live from Radio Row at the NFL Combine. Tuesday, Wednesday, a.k.a. First Friday, and Thursday, General Manager Andrew Berry will join us. The head coach of your Cleveland Browns, Kevin Stefanski, will join us. Glenn Cook and Catherine Raish will join us, the assistant GMs of your Cleveland Browns. Full coverage from Indianapolis, a host of other celebrities set to join us as well. You don't want to miss those shows all next week. That'll be Tuesday through Thursday. We will be live from the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. As I mentioned, the deadline is March 4th for clubs to designate franchise or transition players. And then, so we have the NFL Combine, and then we have a week where there's not a whole lot going on. It's the calm before the storm. March 11th, it's a Monday, starting at 12 noon, which is always great because it's right before our show. We don't have to wait till 3 o'clock or 3:05. We'll actually have some information potentially when the show starts at 1 o'clock. March 11th, starting at noon, teams can enter into negotiations with free agents for players. It's called the legal tampering period, and it goes until Wednesday at 4 o'clock when free agency can officially begin and teams can officially sign players. The Browns, with a lot of free agents on their own hands that they've got to address and figure out and decide if they're going to sign guys or not sign guys on our roster from the 2023 season. So some big decisions coming up between the Combine for a week where it's a little quiet, and then a week of craziness, free agency. And frankly, I don't know if the Browns are going to be real big players in those first couple days of NFL free agency, because at the end of the day, there's not a lot of salary cap to play with. And in free agency, as you know, C and D free agents get paid A and B money. Browns probably not going to be in that ballpark. Not that they won't be active, not that they won't make a move. And as we've seen with Andrew Berry, maybe a trade or two before all is said and done. But in that second wave of free agency, I would expect the Browns to be pretty busy, which is later that week, which would be the 14th and 15th, into the weekend, and then the following week as well. And that takes you all the way up to Easter week. And from there into April, and everything starts picking back up. The NFL Draft, April 25th, 26th, and 27th. And the Browns, unfortunately, without a first-round pick, it's the third and final year. The Browns won't have a first-round pick, and that's right now. Who knows? A lot can change. But they don't have a draft pick in the first round. Their first pick will come at number 54 in round 2 and number 85 in round number 3. 7 picks in all right now in the 2024 draft, and that will come your way April 25th, 26th, and 27th. May 2nd, something to watch, the fifth-year option deadline for the Browns. That would be Greg Newsome II, first-round picks from that year's draft. Will the Browns pick up that contract? That contract becomes fully guaranteed if they pick up that fifth-year option. Obviously, May, you've got your rookie mini camps. Usually the first 2 weeks in May is when we're looking at. And then in June, mandatory minicamp. It'll usually be on a Tuesday, a Wednesday, and a Thursday, and that will wrap up the offseason. It will come, and it will come quickly here for your Cleveland Browns, and it all gets going next week. Everybody's had a good 4 weeks, 5 weeks off, and not really off. We've worked every day, but it's been a little slower. You can actually leave like at 5 o'clock or 5:30 as opposed to working the hours that we work in season, which is quite a bit. So, and then things will start to amp up from there, and it will take us all the way up to the start of training camp in 2024, late July, right before August. TBD if we're going anywhere, if we've got joint practices. Usually we find out that information the week of the NFL Scouting Combine. Last year it was Coach that told us we were going to Philly. And I think it was last year during the Combine that he told us we were also going to the Greenbrier. So next week could be a very informative week as it pertains to that month of August leading up to the start of the 2024 season. I've heard more buzz over the weekend about this whole Sao Paulo, Brazil, Eagles Uno. I am not in favor of it.
I've seen more stuff come out about the Browns and Sao Paulo being a good fit.
I am not on board with this. Not yet.
Some members of our team are excited and others are not.
I'm sure they are. And I don't want to necessarily be the guinea pig. That's what it is. When you go somewhere new, out of the country, you got to figure out what technology works, what doesn't work, and I'm good. Let's go to London or go to Germany. I know that's not an option this year, but maybe London. Who knows? I mean, technically we're supposed to go to Jacksonville in this season, so maybe we end up going to London instead. London, Brazil, it clearly seems to be the case. Or we can just wait a year and then go to Madrid. I'm happy to be the guinea pig when we go to Madrid.
At that stadium, too?
Something tells me that stadium is ready to go already for what we need.
It's beautiful there, too.
Yeah, who gets hurt with that? No one. So that's the deal there. A lot to get to, and the guys will be back on Thursday, and we will get you ready for the 2024 NFL Scouting Combine from Indianapolis. Again, that'll be next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. The guys will broadcast from here on Monday. We're already going to hit the road, so I don't know who's going to run that bad boy. I know Yellowstone's on vacation. He's going to be on assignment. But the rest of us will already be en route, so they might be doing it from the comfort of their homes and their home radio studios, and then hopping in their cars. And a full week comes your way from Indianapolis. Other news of the day on the Hot Topics of the Day, presented by Vivid Seats, an official fan experience partner of your Cleveland Browns. For the third straight offseason, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah will host a youth football camp in Ghana. Very, very excited for this. The young man has really done whatever he can to give back and connect with his roots of his family and of Ghanaian descent. Owusu-Koramoah announcing the camp will take place March 2nd and 3rd in Ghana on his social media. He did it yesterday. It will feature both the fundamental skills camp and a flag football tournament. And more importantly, JOK taking some of his Cleveland Browns teammates with him as well. Set to join him, Amari Cooper, Grant Delpit, Obo Okoronkwo, Elijah Moore, David Bell, Matt Adams, John Kelly Jr., Mohamed Diabate. So a full complement of guys set to join him. And there's other guys from the NFL that go as well. You saw the commercial at halftime of the Super Bowl. It's a big initiative that a lot of players have taken upon themselves, and now the NFL starting to take advantage of that and help out where they can as well. It was pretty great and good for him. Excited. March 2nd and 3rd. That's next week.
Yeah, really soon.
Yeah. I would have expected that. Well, are their seasons flip-flopped in Ghana? Is it summer there right now? I'm going to look it up on the phone.
I'm going to take a look at
There we go. That'll buy us a couple minutes here real quick. That's right. Only an hour and 45 left to fill. Perfect. As I mentioned, Nathan Skirt comes your way with an offensive line position recap. That comes your way at 1:40. We are going to talk about it today because it is the start of teams being allowed to franchise tag players. We'll do thing or not a thing coming up in just a few minutes. Higher or lower at 2 o'clock, the great Nick Shook comes your way at 2:30. Some NFL news, not a whole lot going on, but we will get to that in the 2 o'clock hour as well.
It looks like it's flipped. They're currently they start the wet season coming up soon, so I don't know if that means that's
maybe you got to get it done before the rainy season.
I don't think they have like a 4-season kind of dealio that we have here. It's more of it's either wet or dry, and they don't really have it in between there.
Yeah. Look at this. The climate of Ghana, tropical. There are two main seasons, the wet and the dry seasons. All right. There we go.
Also for JOK, the
Wikipedia said it, so it's got to be true.
The outfits that he wore this year were cool, representing Ghana and all the other countries that he featured, like best dressed in the NFL.
Yes.
So this is like clearly something that's truly important to him.
Absolutely.
And it's awesome to see that from
a lot
of players, but especially him.
It's awesome to see how many of his teammates are going to support him as well. I mean, I would think that's a big carryover from this past season. I mean, and the the camaraderie and the bonding that all those guys went through with not one long stay away, but 2 long stays away between L.A. and the Greenbrier and the entire season. And it's a testament to that. And shout out to all of those guys that are going over. And, of course, shout out to the great JOK. I look forward to recapping that with him. Usually we have him on around the draft to recap that. And excited. So one other date of note, by the way, on the calendar of things to come, probably mid-April, players back in the building. Now, it'll be interesting to see what happens because we did go to the playoffs. Does that get pushed back? Does minicamp end a little earlier? Or does minicamp happen? Some teams have canceled it after they've had a playoff run. All something that you got to watch and see. Voice is running out already. Great. Take a swig out of take a swig out of the Yeti. Someone's like, "What are you drinking in the Yeti? What kind of alcohol?" None. There we go. Now we're back. No, it's water today.
Tomorrow may be a different story. I don't know.
Maybe by hour 2. I don't have an answer for you. All right. That being said, that's your opening segment, and those are the hot topics of the day presented by Vivid Seats, official fan experience partner of your Cleveland Browns. We'll have a little fun coming up next. Thing or not a thing. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, a sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Billy Joel and Rod Stewart together for the first time ever Friday, September 13th, Cleveland Browns Stadium. Tickets on sale now. I heard Billy Joel interview with Howard Stern last week. It was a fantastic interview. And he talked about this tour that's coming up here, and he's never performed with Rod Stewart or Sting or he has performed with Stevie Nicks. He did it down in Columbus at Ohio Stadium. But the other two he has not performed with, and he was talking about how excited he was about this, and especially hitting the stage with Rod Stewart. And they are coming together. Tickets are on sale now for that big Friday night show on September 13th at Cleveland Brown Stadium. Jake Trotter bought an entire section, I'm told. He's living his best life. Congratulations on all your successes, Trotter. Visit clevelandbrownstadium.com/Billy and Rod 2024 for more information and to get your tickets now. Don't miss Billy Joel and Rod Stewart together. One night only, Friday night, September the 13th. Could be a little cool, but that's all right. It's better than being 90 degrees in that kind of for that kind of show. So it's not exactly a rock show. It's going to be a really good show, though. I've seen Billy Joel. If you have not seen him, I really, really recommend it. All right. One player for every team that could get the franchise tag via CBS Sports. Our good friend Jeff Kerr. Uno's going to preside. Paulus is back in. Paulus is on hour number 20 of 24 on the 850 ESPN Cleveland. Are you doing 3 to 6 too?
You know what? They probably asked me to do it, so why not?
I mean, you're a team player like that, Paulus.
Hell yeah, I am.
And now that you're back healthy, big
yes,
fan.
Thank God. Yeah, my son was a little sick out with the weather last week. We're both feeling good, so we're ready to go.
All right, good. Well, let's have a little fun here because now you're a part-time co-host of CBD today. This is Thing or Not a Thing. Uno, take it away.
To start it off, by the way, we mentioned for the Browns, not anybody worth tagging. So we'll skip the Browns for now, but we'll start in the division with the Baltimore Ravens. Their defensive tackle, Justin Madubuike, is their best franchise tag. I have no idea how you say his name.
Good job.
He's their best franchise tag candidate. Career season for him, 13 sacks. Thing or not a thing, the Ravens should do this. Make this choice and franchise tag him.
It would cost them about $21 million.
D-line is the second highest tag of any position behind quarterback.
Yeah. He was a game wrecker on the interior of the defensive line last season. 65 pressures, 13 sacks, 33 QB hits, a pressure rate of 13.4%. Played a big role in Baltimore's defensive success. I don't know if the Ravens have the money to do this after signing Lamar. Once you sign the quarterback to the big money, everything else becomes a problem. Baltimore has proven they can move on from defensive linemen and have success. I'm going to say not a thing. I'm not saying that he's leaving, but I think that the Ravens – I don't know if the Ravens put the tag on him. I think the Ravens try to sign him to a long-term deal, get some guaranteed money, all that fun stuff, and try to avoid that little franchise tag. Nick Paulus, what say you?
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I don't think that it's a thing. I think that they need to make him a full-time, go long-term with Justin, just because, I mean, that is a lot of money right there. $21 million just to keep him around for 1 year and then try and work on a long-term deal. No, just get it done right now if you're able to, and just let him know that he goes elsewhere. He might fall off and might not be the right system fit. The Ravens absolutely need to have that sort of game wrecker on the defense, along with their linebackers that they already have.
Uno, what say you?
I think that they should do it. I think it just makes sense.
So you saying thing?
I say thing just to bring the guy back. I don't know that you want to lose him. He was the best defensive lineman on their team last year. They're not losing a ton in free agency, so there's not going to be a huge list of guys that they're going to have to bring back. So if you can get him for 1 year and then maybe see what happens in the future, you bring him back. They do only have like $7 million in cap, but the cap space
you can work around
just,
the cap.
You work around it. So I think you bring him back. We watched him 2 times play really well, and I don't know why they wouldn't want to keep him around if possible.
I think they want to keep him again. I think that this team has proven that they can replace. It's like plug and play when it comes to the players on their defensive side of the football.
Next up is the Cincinnati Bengals. Thing or not a thing for franchise tagging wide receiver T. Higgins?
Paulus, I'm going to let you go first.
All right, thank you. I think $20 million for your number 2 wide receiver is a lot of money. But if you don't want him to go to the Browns, if you don't want him to go anywhere else in the AFC, you kind of have to get it done. Who knows how much money Jamar Chase is going to ask for? He's actually even come out and said, well, hopefully they can keep him. It depends on how much money I take. So at this point in time, you have no idea what's going to happen with him. I think $20 million is a lot of money for a number 2 wide receiver, but he is the perfect fit for Joe Burrow as that number 2.
Career low in receptions with 42. Receiving yards, 656, and receiving touchdowns with 5. He played just 12 games, clearly was dinged up for most of the season.
And you didn't have Burrow for majority of the
Correct.
year, too.
Yeah, and he wasn't right from the start of the season, from training camp when he went down till he ultimately ended up being knocked out for the remainder of the football season. $20 million for this guy. Like, your window is now. And if you want to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, you've got to have more weapons. You know you've got good quarterback play. You know you've beaten the Chiefs at the highest level. I think you try to run it back one more time. Now the question becomes, is T. Higgins going to accept that? Does T. Higgins, the whole contract extension, because everything we've heard is he's going to sign him, or the Bengals are going to franchise him and then try to sign him to a long-term deal. I don't know what money you're going to give T. Higgins that's going to make it acceptable for him to sign on the dotted line. If not, the Bengals have to find a trade partner, but at that point, what's the trade value? What are you getting back? Because everybody knows that you have to trade him. Otherwise, he's not going to play. So I say sign him, see if you can get a 2-year deal, figure out, you need weapons. That's what you need. The more weapons you have, the better. And this he's going to rebound. He's going to have a really good year again. Let's hope not, but something tells me he's probably going to. Uno. Go ahead, Paulus.
I was just going to say, and not only do you need to resign him, but they are going to be losing Tyler Boyd, and it sounds like Joe Mixon is not going to be there as well. So you absolutely need to get as many playmakers there as possible. $20 million might just be might be the cause of it.
Absolutely. Uno.
I would say especially if it's only $20 million for one season. You haven't paid Jamar Chase yet. You haven't paid some of these young guys outside of Burrow yet. So this is the time where you can survive paying $20 million for T. Higgins. And then next year, if the extensions come in and you have to let him go, that's the tougher decision. But I think for right now, this $20 million is perfectly worth it for the Bengals.
Next.
The Steelers don't have one. They don't have really any free agents that are worth it. Their biggest one is Mason Rudolph. It would be a little funny if they tagged him, but I don't think they will.
All right, so, and obviously they don't have anybody. They don't have anybody. The Pukers don't have anybody. I found this interesting for both of you. This is from Peter King's Football Morning in America. My good friend Jerry Dulac from Pittsburgh, who is one of the longtime reporters there, one of the few people I like in Puker land. But he is great. He's a good human being. He's an average golfer at best, and you could tell him that I said that. I'm sure Grossie's listening and texting him right now. He reported the other day the Steelers are, quote, not interested in bringing in a quarterback who wants to be a starter, end quote. Peter King says, come again? In a division with Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, and Deshaun Watson, the Steelers would actually choose to enter camp with Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph should he sign in free agency with Pittsburgh. That sounds like a colossal misjudgment of your quarterback position. Fine. Great. Be my guest.
Yeah, sign me up for that.
Yep, exactly. Don't go get Fields. Fine. All good. Let him go to the NFC. Let him stay in the NFC.
I was going to say, they were in the market for Fields at some point, and I'd much rather them have Rudolph and Pickett competing than anything close to Justin Fields.
Correct.
Jimmy Garoppolo, you can have him too.
Well, we'll get to him.
Anybody but Fields is fine with me, honestly.
He's having
hey,
some
they
issues.
want Jimmy Garoppolo. I'll let him have Jimmy too. That's fine. We'll break him in half. We'll be fine.
Perfect. Next.
We'll go to the NFC and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I found this one interesting because I haven't heard much about him being tagged. It's their wide receiver, Mike Evans.
Paulus.
Yeah, so I think Mike Evans should be their franchise tagged player. I know that everyone goes to Baker Mayfield, it's $35 million. Maybe a prove it deal. I think he proved it this year for them that he's probably the right guy to lead that franchise going forward. However, you need to load him up. How many times, whenever Baker was here, how many times did we say everything you have to have the perfect scenario. You have to have the perfect setup. The perfect setup is Mike Evans. Mike Evans is 1,000 yards every single year of his career. He's the only player in NFL history to have 10 straight to start his career with that. The man is unbelievable in that Buccaneers uniform. If they let him go to anywhere else, they're only shooting themselves in the foot.
He's 30 years old. It's not like he's at the end of his rope.
He's still got some tread. Yeah, no, he's still got at least a couple of years left. So you figure if it is just the 1 year, maybe you'll see what happens after this year, but you can't let him walk out that door. So I think you probably need to franchise tag him. Evans
with 79 catches for over 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns at the age of 30. His cap number is 23.7.
They would
to
be
franchise him,
saving money.
Yeah, to franchise him actually saves you $3 million.
Just makes sense.
This is a no-brainer. And by the way, if I'm Tampa Bay, whatever I have to do to keep him on the football, like Mike Evans has won a Super Bowl. He's already won one. So, he's already the guy. You've got everything. Pay him what he wants. Let him finish out his career as a Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It makes all the sense in the world. This is a no-brainer. Go. If you got to franchise it to just extend it so you can figure out the deal, fine. By the way, the whole Baker Mayfield contract thing there is something I think that's worth watching. He had some pointed comments on Super Bowl Radio Row, Baker being Baker, had some comments that I'm like, maybe Tampa hasn't gotten with him yet or made him the offer that he thinks is fair. Given the year that he had, maybe it's not awful to get a deal similar to what Geno Smith had. Well, that 30 to 35 million.
Yeah.
He also seemed to be very adamant on Evans coming back and Rachaad White and all these guys that were in his offense not leaving, because it sounded like Evans and Baker actually had really good chemistry. Both of them mentioned how it was there. So if you're going to franchise tag Evans, that opens it up for Baker to come back.
Next.
The NFC, we'll continue on with them. It's Saquon Barkley and the Giants. This would be his second year in a row getting the tag, so he'd get a little bit of a pay raise as well.
Not a thing. No.
How many more times do you want to say
I don't know. 962 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3.9 yards a carry. I get that it was not a good offensive line. Barkley would get a raise from $10 million and change to $11.3, which the Giants can afford with a $19.5 million cap space. I don't. Look, this is what we're paying you. If not, we're going to go get another running back because that's what we can do in the National Football League. Paulus.
Yeah, I think not a thing as well, and it sucks for Giants fans because he is the heart and soul of that entire squad. But the issue is that the guy's only averaging 3.9 yards a carry. Behind again, it is one of the worst offensive lines out there, no doubt about that. But he needs more help, and they frankly need more help. And I figure you could probably get better offensive linemen with that money. So why waste half of your available cap space on a running back? That's where we're at, and it sucks for it sucks for Giants fans, but we're not Giants fans. We can see this without the blue shaded glasses. Saquon's got to go. I'm sorry, it has to. And
it sucks for fans of the running back position because the running back position's essentially been devalued in the National Football League. So it's. Can you go get a guy in the second or third round, have him on a rookie deal for 4 years, have him have the same success, if not more, maybe? I'm not saying that he's going to be as good, but if he is, it's on a rookie deal for 4 years. It's as opposed to $11 million. I don't know if Saquon's going to accept another year of being franchise tagged. That's the other
Well,
thing. I don't think he's got any leverage, but that almost didn't stop him last year from holding out.
Yeah, and we also have to, just look at the numbers that he's producing right now. It's because he's dealing with a lot of injuries, and he misses a lot of time due to that. But I really like Jerome Ford, I really do. But look at his numbers and compare him to Saquon Barkley's, and look at the price difference that you're dealing with Jerome to Saquon Barkley. It's crazy. You put Jerome in that system, he's probably going to get you close to the same amount of yardage as what Barkley did. So why would you even want to pay him $11 million? I think that's crazy.
Uno?
Yeah, I think Paulus made the good point, too, about, there's just so many other holes on this offense. I mean, I think that they need a wide receiver to fill there. Evan Neal has not developed at left tackle very well. So don't spend $11 million on one player when you could spend – you do the Moneyball thing. You replace him with 4 other guys that are going to be able to be paid that instead of just the one running back. And then you can find a running back in the bargain bin anywhere. I mean, this happens every year. We have guys that come out of nowhere and play really well for teams. So I think the Giants need to move on from Saquon, unfortunately.
And again, we're doing this thing or not a thing right now, CBSSports.com. Today is the first day the teams can apply that franchise tag to players, and it goes through 4 o'clock on March the 5th. They can designate franchise or transition tag players. We'll go one more. Uno.
The only quarterback on this list is Kirk Cousins, and it's to the Minnesota Vikings, them bringing him back for yet another season.
Paulus.
Justin Jefferson likes him, so you got to, right? That's kind of where we're at. Now, $35 million is a lot of money for a quarterback that's coming off of an Achilles injury. There's no doubt about that, but you got to do what Justin Jefferson wants you to do. I'm sorry. That's just what needs to happen. So if he wants Kirk Cousins there, if that means that you have to franchise tag him for a year and maybe draft someone, because I don't think that they're going to trade up and get, any of the star quarterbacks of this draft. If you can get a quarterback in the second round, develop him, and get the rapport with Justin Jefferson and that quarterback going forward, that's the ideal thing to do. So, yeah, tag Kirk for the 1 year.
Kirk Cousins. Paulus, I'll start with you. Career earnings in 12 seasons in the NFL. What do you think?
Oh, my God. It's got to be over 200. I'll go 220.
Uno?
275.
$231 million, $669,000 in career
going
earnings.
Up.
And he's lived off the franchise tag.
I was just going to say that. He lived off that franchise tag so long, especially in Washington.
3 years in a row?
Yeah, crazy. And nobody does that. Who would be crazy enough to do that? Washington. That's who.
I mean, I don't. Who are you going to get out there that's better?
Nobody.
That becomes the bigger question at this point. That's I don't know. I don't know who you're going to get. So you're probably better off bringing him in for $36 million. Oof. That's just a lot of money for a team that I don't know what direction they're going in.
I don't think they're bad, but I don't know that they're good either. But I think Kirk Cousins at least accelerates you to the point where if, with the way that the NFC is, you could probably make the playoffs with him as your starting quarterback next year. You could get a guy young and develop him. He is 35, so you're going to have to move on eventually. Why not ride it out with Kirk, try and go make the playoffs, and see what happens? I say you do it.
All right. I guess. And then you got to do whatever you can to get Justin Jefferson under contract. That should be your most important thing.
He's going to get close to what Kirk's getting, so that's where it becomes tough.
Yeah, I know. A lot to know, a lot to see. Again, it all gets going starting today. Players can be franchise tagged or transition tagged. Combine next week, a week where it's a little quiet, and then that Monday, March 11th, legal tampering can begin at 12 o'clock. That goes through 4 o'clock on Wednesday the 13th when free agency officially starts and the new calendar year in the National Football League commences. All right, Paulus, great job. Uno, outstanding, other than Matabuke. We'll take a quick timeout. When we come back, our position reviews from the 2023-24 season continue. Nathan Zegura gives us a few minutes of his time before he went on assignment, breaking down the interior line, the tackles, and, of course, the coaches within that room as well. You're going to really like what you hear coming up. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, a sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
Gear up.
ESPN Cleveland. Welcome back to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio. We continue our position review series with a look at the Browns' offensive line, and it was a unit that, boy, it withstood quite a few injuries, really down to your fourth and fifth tackles by the end of the season. You can make case it was really your fifth and sixth tackles, because I think some people forget about Ty Nsekhe, who was on the team and got hurt immediately after going into a game. So this was an offensive line that battled, and it gave you some good production still. It gave you what you needed. You had two Pro Bowlers on the line, your two guards, Joel Bitonio, and, of course, Wyatt Teller. But there's turnover, and turnover is coming, because not only are there some players on the offensive line a year ago who may or may not be back, there's a new coaching staff in that room. And I think that's the biggest thing that we can talk about, and we're going to start right there, because Bill Callahan is regarded as the best offensive line coach in the National Football League. And Bill Callahan decided, and you can't blame him, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Of course, you've got to go do it. But to join his son, Brian Callahan, who was named the head coach of the Tennessee Titans. So Bill Callahan, he went there to be the offensive line coach for his son, and so the Browns had an opening. So let's just start right there. You lose Bill Callahan, of course it is massive. He is in some ways irreplaceable. But at the same time, if at the end of the season we look back at the offensive line coach being the difference between winning or losing the Super Bowl, then I think there were a lot of things that maybe didn't go our way. Because this is about the quarterback first and foremost. We've talked about that, this offense gelling. And Bill Callahan, he is the best, but the Browns went out and got somebody that they think can be one of the fastest rising stars in this profession, and that's Andy Dickerson. And Andy Dickerson had been with the Browns back in 2009 and 2010. In 2010, he was the assistant offensive line coach. The Hoff remembered working with him under George Warhop. He's in his 19th season in the NFL after spending the past 3 seasons with Seattle, first as the run game coordinator in 2021, and then as the offensive line coach from 22 to 23. He served as the assistant offensive line coach with the Rams and Sean McVay 2012 to 2020, where he helped shape some of the league's top offensive units. So he has been very successful. And Kevin Stefanski, when the Browns brought Andy Dickerson in, said, quote, "We were all impressed with Andy along with his background and knowledge when we first met about our offensive coordinator position. When our offensive line position opened up, he was among the first calls I made. Andy loves teaching and will bring a passion and energy that will greatly benefit our linemen. He understands the high standard that our room must have in order for our offense to be successful, and we know he's excited about being back in the building with this organization." So it is going to be Andy Dickerson's room in 2024. Joining him also will be Roy Istvan, the assistant offensive line coach. He's got 33 years of coaching experience on the college and pro level, spending the past 5 seasons as an assistant offensive line coach in Philadelphia with the Eagles. And obviously we know about that Browns, Andrew Berry, Philadelphia pipeline. So obviously he has been very well regarded. And so that's your new look, Dickerson and Istvan in that offensive line room. On the field, let's see what that looks like. But let's take a look back quickly. In the tackle room, you started the season with Jed Wills and Jack Conklin. James Hudson and DeJuan Jones were your backups. Well, week 1, Jack Conklin lost for the season against Cincinnati. Later in the season, Jed Wills lost for the year. DeJuan Jones had to fill in for Jack Conklin immediately and was on the way to being perhaps not only a Pro Bowler, but even a first-team All-Pro. That's how good he was at the right tackle position. He ultimately ended up being lost for the season. And so in the playoffs, the Browns were starting James Hudson at right tackle and Jaron Christian at left tackle. And Jaron Christian was a guy that, started the season with the Houston Texans. The Browns picked him up. Callahan had some familiarity with him from Washington and came in and gave you serviceable reps. But when you have a season in which your top 3 tackles play, in Jack Conklin's case, 1 game, Jed Wills' case, 8 games, DeJuan Jones' case, 9 starts, 11 games, that's going to be a problem. And so getting that unit healthy, that is going to be job number 1. Jack Conklin is a 2-time first-team All-Pro, most recently 2020, his first season with the Cleveland Browns. But his games have been 15 games in 2020, first-team All-Pro, then 7 games, then 14 games, then 1 game. And so you look at this and you say to yourself, okay, you got Conklin, who signed a contract extension. He's getting pretty good money. You've got Jed Wills, who they picked up his 5th-year option. He's slated to make $14.6 million this year. Jed Wills hasn't become the star you had hoped when you drafted him 10th overall. This is a make-or-break year for him in that sense, not only for his time with the Browns, but probably for what his financial future looks like. A monster season for him will mean a monster payday. If not, we will see. And then there's DeJuan Jones, Big Thanos, the Browns rookie fourth-rounder, who if you were redrafting the 2023 NFL draft today, he'd be a top 10 pick. Might even be a top 5 pick. He'd be the first tackle off the board, potentially. He was that good. He was everything that you could have hoped he would be, and then he was more than that. He was stifling, and he had to face Bosa. He had to face Watt, and he held all of them, kept them away from the quarterback, wasn't giving up pressures. For a while, he had the most pass-blocking snaps in the league without giving up a sack. So DeJuan Jones had an incredible rookie season for the Cleveland Browns, and it feels to me like you could make the case that DeJuan Jones might be the best tackle on this football team. And so how does this ultimately look for the Browns? When you look at, in terms of blocking grades, he was right at the top for this Cleveland Browns football team. He and Jack Conklin were the top two at the tackle position. And so you say to yourself, okay, what's this going to look like? DeJuan Jones on one side, I think for sure. Do you try DeJuan Jones at left tackle? Do you try to move Jed Wills into the interior ultimately? Or is he a swing tackle? Or does Jack Conklin become your swing tackle and you move Jed Wills back to the right side? Do you keep Jed Wills on the left? Do you go with, on the right side, DeJuan Jones? I think there's a lot of moving parts just in that tackle room. You got James Hudson still on his rookie deal. He can play both sides for you and is a good extra blocker. Leroy Watson was somebody the Browns got late in the season off the Niners practice squad. He was on the active roster, a former tight end, good feet. They like him as a developmental project as well. And so when you look at this tackle group, I think it's a big question. What's it going to look like? Who are the two starters? Who are the two people that are slated to go from day one? And I don't know the answer to that because I think there could be some moving parts. The Browns are going to face some salary cap realities. And as we go from the outside of the line to the interior, where you are as solid as can be with Joel Bitonio, the 6 straight Pro Bowls, 5-time All-Pro, 2-time first team, 3-time second team, Wyatt Teller, 3 straight Pro Bowls. Ethan Posick probably should have been to a couple of Pro Bowls. He gave up only 1 sack last year. Only 1 sack all season long. He was phenomenal. Those 3 are all paid. And can you pay 3 interior offensive linemen forever? I don't know the answer to that. And so I think there are going to be perhaps some tough decisions there with Bitonio, with Teller, and, of course, with Ethan Posick. The Browns also have Luke Whippler, who they drafted in the 6th round a year ago, and then pending free agents, Michael Dunn, who's been kind of that swing guard for them, and then Nick Harris, who was the backup center, goal line fullback, all of it last year, and a great football player and somebody the Browns love, so I know they would love to have him back. What's this room going to look like? We know, again, who the top 4 tackles are be. We really probably know who the top 5 tackles are going to be, with Leroy Watson being the 5th. We know who your top 3 on the interior are, and you've got at least one backup. Whippler still can play guard and center, and you'll probably add to that room, whether it's bringing back Dunn and Harris or making an addition in the draft or free agency. So I think there are some big questions. Can the Browns continue to pay Jack Conklin, Jed Wills, Wyatt Teller, Joel Bitonio, and Ethan Posick? And if the answer to that is yes, which is a good thing, what does it look like? You have 3 tackles for 2 spots. Can you have 2 $10+ million guards? These are very tough decisions, and I think some tough decisions are going to happen here in the offensive line room. Now, the flip side of that is you want as much depth as you can possibly have in this room. You need to have depth in this room. You saw it this year. You're down to your 5th and 6th tackles, or 4th and 5th tackles, however you want to look at it. At times, you were without guys on the interior of your offensive line. And so you need to be able to see what that looks like, figure that out, and how you're going to balance the depth, how you're going to balance the talent, and then how you're going to balance the salary. Because that is, I think, one of the big things to look at here with this Cleveland Browns team. How are you going to balance the salaries across this offensive line? Because when you look at it, when you look at just the raw numbers, they're very interesting for the Cleveland Browns. And the amount that could be invested in this offensive line as we go through. This is courtesy of overthecap.com right now, as you're looking at the 2024 season. Jed Wills is due about 14.6 against the cap. Joel Bitonio, 12 against the cap. Conklin, 12 against the cap. Wyatt Teller, 11.6 against the cap. And then Ethan Posick down at about $4 million. So he's in a good spot. But you've got 4 offensive linemen all making between $11.6 and $14.6 million this year. Not to mention, we didn't say DeJuan Jones' name in that group, and he might be the best of the tackles at this point. So I think that is what Andrew Berry and his team and his staff, they are going to have to contend with. What does this offensive line look like? Do we have to part with a very familiar name and productive name in order to have the room to do the other things on this roster? Certainly we all hope not. because I love this offensive line, and I think when you lose a Bill Callahan, keeping that talent in place is going to be your best chance to keep that elite level of play in place. Hopefully this can stay healthy in this tackle room, so I think that is a big deal. So was improving the depth of this room one of the 5 biggest needs for the Browns this offseason? I don't know. I mean, I think you've got incredible depth. You've got 3 starting tackles, if not 4, but 3 people who have at various points in their careers played at high levels in Wills, Conklin, and then DeJuan Jones. You've got the best interior offensive line in terms of Teller, Posick, and Bitonio. And you've got some good depth there potentially if you're able, with Luke Whippler, if you're able to bring back a Nick Harris, if you're able to bring back a Michael Dunn, if Drew Forbes can stay healthy, a guy who had played very well for this football team in the past. So I don't think it's a top 5 priority. I think understanding a top 5 priority of this offseason for Andrew Berry, though, is going to be understanding this offensive line, understanding the salaries associated with it, and understanding where that fits in to the big picture. So remember, I said you had 4 linemen making between 11.6 and 14.6. Those linemen are 4 of your top 10 contracts, period. That's unheard of. So how do the Browns deal with that? How do they maybe figure a way to finagle that to work? Now, you could have some restructuring. I think that's very likely on some of these contracts to kind of push some of this money down the road here. But there's going to have to be something done there, and I think that is going to be the most interesting part of this from a strategy, salary cap, and then talent standpoint to get this offensive line room to be what it has been for the Cleveland Browns in the past. The good news is you've got your starting lineup is all under contract, and arguably you could say your top backup on the interior and your top backup on the tackles are all, or top 2 backups on tackles are under contract for next year. So you're in a good spot there, but there are going to have to be some interesting, tough decisions and maybe some subtle nuance to how you concoct this room, how you organize these salaries, and then how playing time is divvied up, especially the tackle position, I think is going to be fascinating. So that's a look at the Browns offensive line. I think in many ways it's set. In many ways it's going to be a new room because of the new leadership under Andy Dickerson. But at the same time, there are things that need to be done, and how Andrew Berry, the levers that he uses to craft this room, I think will be very interesting to see going forward. We'll be back with more Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, right after this on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You are up.
The Rolling Stones Hackney Diamonds Tour coming to Cleveland Browns Stadium Saturday, June the 15th. Tickets on sale now. Visit clevelandbrownsstadium.com/Rolling Stones for more information. I'm Jason Gibbs. Bishop on assignment. Zagura on assignment. Hell, even Griff's on assignment. Everybody's on assignment. Yellowstone spinning the dials next to Uno. Tequila Fila's in there. Who the hell knows what's going on in that other room? Nick Paulus is back at the ESPN Cleveland studios. Time for a little higher or lower, presented by our great friends at the Ohio Lottery. Gentlemen, Uno, you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Paulus, are you ready for this?
Born ready.
I will get to our quarterback and where he is rated here in just a few minutes. Sorry, Yellowstone, I'm going out of order. I'm going to stay in order. I'm just skipping over where our quarterback is rated because it's garbage. The 33rd team has these rankings. Derek Clausen, he's a film analyst.
He's maybe a film analyst.
Are you a film analyst, Uno?
I think I could do better than this.
There we go. I like it already. I like it. I just wonder what makes you a film analyst. But hey, he's writing for the 33rd team, and we use their content quite a bit in the offseason. That being said, Clausen ranking every NFL quarterback entering the 2024 season. Hit it, boss.
Higher or lower?
Patrick Mahomes is number one. I don't think any of us can argue or dispute that. Number two, Uno.
Number 2 is Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. Higher or lower for Lamar?
Or just right.
Or just right. That's
Come
true,
on,
too.
Uno. Let's go.
You think I'd never heard this segment before?
Well, I mean, Griff doesn't pay attention.
Just going to say, sometimes other people in here zone out, so maybe.
Nick Paulus, Lamar Jackson. I don't think we're going to say higher, lower, or
No.
just right.
I think it's got to be just right. I mean, the guy's a 2-time MVP award winner. I mean, that almost locks up a Hall of Fame bid for you at that moment in time. The guy's special. He truly is. It kills me that he's in our division because I want to root for the guy. He seems like a nice guy, but he's with the Baltimore Ravens, so I hate him. So
Exactly, Paulus.
and that's where we're at. But no, I think number 2 for Lamar Jackson, the MVP of the year. Yeah, that's probably the right choice right there.
Uno, what say you?
I think this is a good spot for Lamar Jackson. I think before the season, you could have had some questions about him, but I think he pretty much silenced all the doubt when he goes out and wins his second MVP and would have been the best quarterback if Patrick Mahomes didn't exist.
Well, I mean, Lamar is going, just based on the regular season accolades, Lamar is going to win the MVP. He already has won the MVP.
Yeah.
That happened. It feels like it happened.
Higher or lower?
Yeah,
Sorry,
Paulus.
that's
No,
on me.
no, Paulus. Actually, you couldn't have
You
done
gotta
that any
save
better
him.
because after I said it, I'm like, that happened like a month ago, Gibbs.
Yep.
That's where we're
Yeah,
at.
well,
Yeah,
just trying to
Lamar won
speed
the
it up for you.
MVP. Like
His-
he
it's
should be
the
number
second
2.
one already.
Like Mahomes is the man. Unfortunately, the Ratbirds quarterback is number 2. That takes us next. Josh Allen is number 3. Justin Herbert is number 4. This guy's got Matthew Stafford, number 5. Nick Paulus, I'll ask you, higher, lower, or just right for the Rams QB?
He's got to be lower. That is way too high for Matt Stafford. I'm sorry. He's got to be lower, no doubt about that. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but the guy at number 9, like, how is that not flip-flopped? That's where I'm looking at right there. So, yeah, Matt Stafford needs to be lower.
Uno?
I would have said lower too. When I scrolled through the list, there's actually not a lot of guys below him that I think are better than him, but there's a couple, including the individual that we'll do next, who definitely needs to be above him. So I don't think 5 is the right spot, but like 7 or 8 might not have been bad for Matt Stafford.
I was going to say he's a top 10, given
Absolutely.
how he's played, especially coming back from yet another injury and playing at the level that he played. He's a top 10. He is definitely not number 5. Next.
Higher or lower?
Number 6 is Dak Prescott. Well, you play like an MVP in the regular season, just doesn't do anything in the postseason. But same with the rest of the Dallas Cowboy organization. Number 7 is C.J. Stroud. Number 8 is Trevor Lawrence. And that takes us to number 9, and the quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals, Joe Burrow. Uno, I'm going to let you go first. Higher, lower, or just right?
Definitely higher for Joe Burrow. I would definitely have him over Lawrence. I'd definitely have him over Dak, and I would definitely have him over Matt Stafford. You probably have him over Stroud, but CJ had such a good rookie season. I understand like the recency bias of putting him that high, but 9 is too low for Joe Burrow. When he's healthy, he's probably the 3rd best in the conference and top 5 in the league.
Nick Paulus, what say you?
Does the 33rd team even look at, the games? Like, how can you tell me that Trevor Lawrence is above Joe Burrow at any point in time? I'm sorry, even with Burrow missing half the year, he's better than Trevor Lawrence. That's just a straight up fact. Burrow needs to be higher on this list. I mean, I could argue that he'd be a top 5, top 4 quarterback on this list. Yeah, I think it's ridiculous. He needs to be higher.
All right, so in the article, the gentleman says Joe Burrow's injury-plagued 2023 season makes him difficult to place. Actually, it's not difficult to place.
No, it isn't.
He should be number 5 is where he should be.
At worst, I mean, I could argue that he should be number 4 at least.
You're right. You're right.
Justin Herbert, really? Like,
Herbert,
no.
you got to see it. And something tells me you will see it with Harbaugh as the head coach. He should be able to get the best out of him. You're right. But great point. He should be number 4 on that list. I think Prescott I would put Herbert number 5 because I think Herbert has all the talent in the world to be a top 5 quarterback. I would leave Prescott at 6. I would put Trevor Lawrence ahead of C.J. Stroud. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I know Stroud had a fantastic rookie season. I still think there's a lot there, and Trevor Lawrence is a very, very talented quarterback that, for whatever reason, the whole offense disappeared down the stretch. And I think it started with us. Uno?
Yeah, and Lawrence has stacked like 2 good seasons in a row now, where CJ's only stacked 1. And then, I mean, Lawrence's rookie season was such a mess with the Urban Meyer stuff that, like, the growth that he's put together probably would allow him to be higher than Stroud. But CJ, like, if he does that again, then I'm putting him over Trevor. But it's the longevity.
Yeah, I love C.J. Stroud. I think that it's tough because it is just his rookie year. I'll give Trevor the benefit of the doubt. I think he's a fine quarterback, but you're right. If C.J. is as good as what I think he is going to be above him next year.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now that there's tape on him, let's see what the league does and how the league responds to C.J. Stroud. But I couldn't be happier with the job that he did, except in the wild card game
except for that
against us. Damn you to hell. Next.
Higher or lower?
Number 10 on this list, Jordan Love, the Green Bay Packers.
No idea what to do with this one.
I don't. Paulus, what say you? Higher, lower, or just right for Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers?
I can't believe I'm going to do this, but I think as of right now, probably top 10. I hate it. My wife is a Packers fan, diehard Packers fan, grew up loving them. I am furious that they have 30 straight years of top 10 quarterback play, but that's exactly what it is. And I figure I'm just looking at a couple of the options below him. Kyler Murray, Geno, Kirk Cousins. Like it's as of right now, there's not a whole lot of great quarterbacks out there, and unfortunately for us, we have to sit through another year of seeing Jordan Love being a top 10 quarterback.
So you think right where he's at? Just
probably right. Yeah, just right, probably.
Uno?
It's tough when you look at those names behind him.
Okay.
If you do the Trevor Lawrence Stroud argument, you probably put Kyler ahead of him because Kyler's been at least a good quarterback for like 4 years now. I don't think he's been great, but he's at least like won games and he's a good player. And
So
Jordan Love
I'm-
has done one season of this. So that's the
See-
only thing for me about Love is like it's hard to gauge one season of success for him because we have no idea what he's going to do next year. Same with the same argument with Stroud.
But
Pause.
whenever you look at what Jordan Love's dealing with, Jordan Love has Matt LaFleur, and he's a special head coach. He truly is. And Kyler has been through a bunch of coaches already. I don't want to deal with Kyler Murray, and personally, like I think that Jordan Love's arm talent is from what he showed this year, it's special. So I would take Love over Kyler.
All right, would you take Love? Question for both of you. Paulus, I'll start with you. Would you take Love over Jared Goff?
Yes, I would.
Uno?
I was going to say no, but that's probably because I'm continuing to apologize to Jared Goff after me and Griff disrespected him.
Probably
in
a
that
good move
playoff
by you.
ranking.
What about Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, absolutely. Jordan Love over Aaron
Packers
Rodgers?
already
Absolutely.
made that decision
I-
for us. I think they
yes.
also agreed that they would take Jordan Love.
The guy missed the whole season. Like,
no idea what to do with Aaron Rodgers. He actually, I think, is placed well on this list
No
because there's
way.
no idea what he's going to be.
I don't know. Aaron Rodgers needs to be higher. He's 15. What about Jalen Hurts at 17?
Jeez, they do have Jalen Hurts at 17.
17.
My God.
They got Brock Purdy at 18.
They have
Yeah.
Anthony Richardson at 16 to spoil the next one spot ahead of Jalen Hurts. The guy played 3 games last year.
I'm a fan of Anthony Richardson, but that is number
He's not
16.
there.
You're telling me? No, not yet. No, absolutely not.
I mean, that is Aaron Rodgers should probably be number 10 or number 11. I mean, until
he
proven
only lasted
otherwise.
4 plays, Gibbs. He only lasted 4 plays, and then his Achilles blew out, and then he's just been on a media spree ever since.
Yeah, and I understand that, but if he's still the same Aaron Rodgers in terms of a guy that can throw the ball,
But he didn't look that good whenever he was his last year in Green Bay too.
I don't know. Until I actually see him just collapse, I think that he's in my top 12. That's I don't
Just
know.
wonder
I
for
don't know what
Rodgers,
to do
when's it
with.
going to fall apart
Yeah.
fully?
Well,
it's close.
The train wreck's going to be epic. I can assure you of that.
The McAfee
Well,
show is going to be much watch if he continues to fall off.
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, let's play Guess the Stats, Gibbs. How about this?
Oh,
Let's play
God.
Guess the
His
Stats
favorite
here
game.
for
This
us.
will be good.
Hey, Paulus, thanks.
Yeah, why not?
First
so
and last
obviously,
day on the show.
exactly. So obviously, let's not count last year because he was in there for 4 plays. What do you think his 2022 stat line was? Yards, touchdowns, and interceptions.
Did he play in 16 games?
I believe it was 16. Yeah.
Not the full 17. I'm going to say 32 touchdowns, probably 14 picks.
And then yardage. What do you think it was?
Oh, God. This is where I'm tremendously off on these. I'd say 3,200 yards.
So 3,700 yards,
All right.
26 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. The year prior to that, I believe it was his MVP year.
Yes.
He had 4,100 yards, 37 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. He had 8 more interceptions, which you look at that and you're like, oh, well, it's.
Yeah, but
that's
didn't
a
they
lot
get rid of
interceptions.
Adams before that? In that offseason?
What, in
Between the
2022? Yes.
MVP? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
So, yeah, I mean, Adams is a huge is a huge key, but you look at what Jordan Love was able to do with rookies out there. And I believe he had 32 touchdowns this year. So I don't know. I would have Love ahead of Rodgers, no doubt in my mind.
All right. So they had their top their 11 through 20. 11 was Kyler, 12 was Geno Smith, 13 was Kirk Cousins, 14 was Goff, 15 Rodgers. Goff just does not get any love or support, period.
He's a good quarterback.
He is a good quarterback. He just doesn't get any love.
I'd put him over Geno for sure.
Yeah.
Geno and
I
Kyler.
would, yeah.
Yeah. Richardson was 16, Jalen Hurts 17, Brock Purdy was 18.
That's just crazy.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah. Tua was number 19. Would you put Tua ahead of Jordan Love? Baker Mayfield was number 20.
Yeah, I mean, Tua, what he's done the last 2 years, yeah, you probably would have to go above Jordan Love. From what I saw the last, 9 or 10 games of the regular season from Jordan Love, whenever everyone had the book on him, and he just dominated that last half. So, yeah, and what he did in the playoffs as well against the Cowboys. And then, I know he had the one dumb interception against the San Francisco 49ers, but I might put Tua barely ahead of Jordan Love.
All right, so I'm just going to put this to bed now. Fields is 21. Derek Carr is 22. Daniel Jones is 23. Russell Wilson's 24. 25, Bryce Young. Anybody seeing a trend here? Someone's missing. Number 26 is Desmond Ridder. Number 27 is Deshaun Watson. Guy was 4-1 in the games he started and played through the conclusion of last year. I know it's a small sample size, but there's no way Deshaun Watson's the 27th ranked quarterback in the National Football League. Desmond Ridder is ahead of him? You just don't like him. That's what that is. Well, that is a personal, I just don't like Deshaun Watson, so I'm going to put him at number 27.
If you read his first sentence of his little blurb about Deshaun, it tells you perfectly what he feels about him.
Yeah. Ridder is ahead of him. Bryce Young. Daniel Jones. Come on. Derek Carr on the back end of the career.
Any of those
Russell
teams would
Wilson's
take Deshaun
on the back
right now.
end. Yeah. Fields should be ranked probably a little bit higher. I get we need to see him on the field, and he needs to be healthy, and he needs to show that he can do this for an entire season. But Deshaun Watson deserves a much better ranking than the love or lack thereof he's getting from the 33rd team. Awful. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. Will Levis was 28. Sam Howell, 29. Aiden O'Connell, 30. Great. Pickett, 31. That guy sucks. Bailey Zappi of the Patriots rounding things out at number 32. But Deshaun Watson being 27th is laughable in this higher or lower ranking from the 33rd team. That is presented by our great friends at the Ohio Lottery. Just a quick little trip around the NFL as to what's making headlines. We'll get to that coming up next. Nick Shook, bottom of the hour. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, a sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You are up.
Don't miss Billy Joel and Rod Stewart together for the first time ever Friday, September 13th at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Tickets on sale now. Visit clevelandbrownsstadium.com/Billy and Rod 2024 for more information. Billy Joel and Rod Stewart together for one night only. I'm Jason Gibbs. Zagura and Bishop back with you on Thursday. What in the heck are these two guys doing? Moving desks. Fun times. I don't know what's going on.
It's a standing desk.
It's a standing desk. Oh, that's right. I saw that on Slack earlier. I'm like, what are they doing? They're looking at me. You guys are the ones moving desks. I am not part of that. Coming up in just a few minutes, we will talk to the great Nick Shook. Around the sports world, Jimmy Garoppolo suspended 2 games for using PEDs. Also expected to be released by the Raiders after, quote, 1 season with the team. I don't know where this guy's career goes after this. The PEDs didn't work if you were on them prior to being found out. I'm not quite sure what happened.
Not a smart business decision.
Nope, frowned upon.
The guy that replaced him ranked 30th on that list, too, of top. Not that the list was super valid, but when you're getting replaced by the 30th best starting quarterback in the NFL, something might be wrong.
I don't. Hey, Pukers, maybe you want him. Great. Be my guest. Paulus, I think you mentioned that earlier.
Yep.
Please. The Ravens re-signing Nelson Aguilar to a 1-year contract. An interesting note, Saints tight end Jimmy Graham will be rowing across the Arctic Ocean. Arctic, not Atlantic.
I thought it was Atlantic at first, and then it ended up being the Arctic Ocean.
Arctic Challenge, a 1,000-kilometer, 621 miles trek where a 4-team group will row nonstop across the Arctic Ocean in July 2025. That sounds awful.
No fun, but
how big is the boat that you're rowing in? Because it's an ocean. And if you end up in a storm, I'm not quite sure that ends well.
It's a great question.
Like,
because if it's just like a canoe, like, what are you doing?
Do you have a death wish? Maybe.
621 miles.
Get out of here. No. No is the answer. I don't want to get in a boat. I don't want to, not a boat. I don't want to get in a canoe here or a kayak here in Lake Erie. I certainly don't want to go to the Arctic Ocean to do this. His love of adventure. Well, buddy, I think you might have a death wish. I
might be your last adventure.
Holy God. Final fact of the day without Griff, it says on my rundown. Uno?
Yeah, we'll get Griff back tomorrow for the fact of the day, but I had to fill in again today.
Slacker. He never gave us anything, huh?
No, we asked him before he left to give us some facts, and I got nothing. So
perfect. Look forward to making
came up
fun
with this
of him
one
tomorrow.
At 12:45.
Awesome. What do you got?
Recently retired wide receiver Matthew Slater. He's tied for the second most Pro Bowl selections since 2011. He has 10 of them. He only trails Trent Williams, who has 11. 10 Pro Bowlers for Matthew Slater, all as a special teamer.
Correct.
And he's a 2-time All-Pro.
Retired today from the New England Patriots. Belichick says, just like his father, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
He's one of the best. I think Belichick said one of the best special teamers ever.
Well, maybe we'll ask Gerard Cherry about that tomorrow, because he is a 3-time Super Bowl champion on special teams.
Interesting for Slater, though. Like, is that a Hall of Fame case? 10 Pro Bowlers and 2 All-Pros at a teamer? What do you put him in as?
Tasker isn't in, is he?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Well, they just let in Devin Hester, which sort of opens the door for more special teams players.
Sure.
Which is great, but, does he really get in? I don't think so. No. I don't think that there's a chance.
All right. That's a quick look around the sports world. It's a slow day. We'll get to the NBA All-Star game. We got time this week. Got a lot of time.
Some fun golf stuff, too, that we have to talk about.
Perfect. I'm all in for that as well. All right, we'll take a quick time out. Nick Shook from NFL.com and the NFL Network joins us next. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Welcome back here to Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, a sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. I am Jason Gibbs. Bishop and Zagura back with you on Thursday. Coming up tomorrow on a First Friday, we'll break down the safety position. Also, we'll talk a little draft. Uno's big into the draft. He's all fired up because we're taking him to Indianapolis with us next week in the scouting combine. I know Daniel Jeremiah dropped a mock draft.
Interesting one. I looked at it during one of the breaks.
I look forward to your breakdown of that. Matt Miller from ESPN's on a conference call right now. We'll have some audio from him on Browns options and also some of the other high positions of importance as we get ready for this NFL draft. I'm fascinated to know what that wide receiver position looks like. Everybody wants to talk about Harrison, and there's a few other guys, but where's the fall off? It seems to be mid-first round, and then there's a pretty big gap. So maybe not as deep a position as in years past.
There's like 5 guys who could go in the first, I think, and then there's a bunch of guys who are like anywhere from late 1 to round 3. Like that seems to be the consensus on the wide receiver room. So it's weird. Like we pick at 54. I don't know what the value of wide receivers is going to be there.
Yeah.
Because there's 5 guys that I think are separated, and then everybody else is just right there.
Well, and that will play into what wide receivers are valued here in free agency. Same with Justin Jefferson wanting a new contract. Like, where monetarily does everybody line up and fall in place? Especially if there's not a big wide receiver market in the draft. If you want a wide receiver, you're going to have to pay for one in free agency. And, again, we've seen it time and time again, receivers getting overpaid for what they're, C and D wide receivers making A and B money.
Christian Kirk was the best example of that a couple years ago. But he has done better than I expected him to, but when he got that deal, he was the first, pay that for Christian Kirk. But it's worked out for him. But that is, Tyler Boyd's going to be the name this year. How much do you pay that guy to be average? He's a fine player, but he's not a superstar.
What did Tyler Boyd do?
I think I just heard it this morning on a podcast. He's got 6,000 career yards and 7-8 seasons.
Tyler Boyd had 67 catches for 667 yards and 2 touchdowns in 17 games. T. Higgins played 5 less games and had 11 less yards and 3 more touchdowns.
But that guy could be a hot commodity if you don't know what you're getting in the middle of the draft at wide receiver.
Yeah, correct. Someone's going to fall in love and be like, we got to have him. I just, I don't know about that one.
To me, he's the C or D player that I would be the most
I think
interested
that's a good comp. Christian Kirk this year, 57 catches, 787 yards, 3 touchdowns. 13.8 yards per catch.
I'm trying to see what his contract was to see how much he actually got.
Paulus, Mr. Shook says dial him up again.
Will do.
He got 4 years, $72 million, Christian Kirk, which felt like a lot for a guy that had 700 yards this year.
I mean,
But I think he had better season last year.
He did.
Okay. Calvin Ridley being in the offense probably changed that, but...
By the way, Calvin Ridley, that's something to watch. Are they going to franchise him? He can be a free agent. If they re-sign him, they owe Atlanta a second-round pick. Right now it's only a third. Right? It would be a second-rounder if they sign him to an extension.
He's the same age as Amari Cooper.
Ridley?
Calvin Ridley. Both are 29.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I like our guy.
And Ridley's been in the league 3 or 4 less seasons than Amari, and they're both 29.
I got him.
All right. Well, I like our guy. That's all. I also like this guy, and I can't wait to It's a tradition unlike any other. I look forward to seeing him at Kilroy's next week in Indianapolis. Sure, we'll also see each other on Radio Row and with all the coaches and GMs talking, but Kilroy's is where the business of the NFL really gets done. And the great Nick Shook joins us on the Twisted Tea hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea, Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of the Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. Hello, my friend. Have you recovered from Super Bowl?
Oh, I've recovered, and I am ready to get to Indy to meet up with you and have another week of fantastic combine coverage mixed in with a little bit of fun in between, some commiserating.
All right, so how long were you ultimately in Vegas for the Super Bowl? How many days?
Whopping 8 days, 4 times the recommended amount.
Yeah, I was going to say at least 96 hours more than you need to be in Las Vegas.
Yeah, let's just say by the time I got to Friday, it was basically like, all right, I'm done with the city. I love covering the Super Bowl, and the coverage was great all week. But there were so many – Vegas is already a busy city. But with so many people coming in for the Super Bowl, it was just a sea of humanity. Like, people talk about how the Strip was a parking lot. The sidewalks were a human parking lot. There was congestion. There was standstill foot traffic in some points. The energy was extremely aggressive on Saturday. I basically was like, hey, I'm going to turn in early tonight and stay away from all the shenanigans and get ready for the Super Bowl on Sunday. It just, you spend that long in Vegas when, there's nothing but stimulation, the casinos and everything else. And obviously as an NFL employee, unable to gamble or anything
Correct.
like that. So you're walking through casinos and it's just sounds and lights and noise. I was just ready to get to the game.
Absolutely. Nick Shook from NFL.com and the NFL Network joins us. Bigger surprise, and this came from my producer last week when we were putting together the show. Bigger surprise, 49ers getting rid of Steve Wilks or the 49er players not knowing the overtime rules?
Probably that's actually a good question.
Who knows when to
I
win?
mean, the Wilkes firing probably more of a surprise. I mean, you and I have personal experience with Steve Wilkes from his time in Cleveland. He's been a number of different stops. He seems to be liked by the players that he plays for, and that defense was solid. It wasn't great. It was probably the unit I trusted least among the four, if you go offense and defense for both the Chiefs and the 49ers. But they didn't have a bad game. They just allowed a touchdown in overtime. They did a good job of bottling up the Chiefs' offense for most of the game. They held them to a lot of field goals. The one Chiefs touchdown they scored came after they got the ball inside the 20 because of a muffed punt. So I didn't think they did a terrible job, but, sometimes you kind of saw this in Cleveland with, the parting with Alex Mann-Pelt. Sometimes the head coach and the coordinator just don't see eye to eye and they feel a change is necessary. So that was probably a bigger surprise. And the only reason is because the overtime rules, we were confused in the stadium at the game, watching the clock tick down and thinking, does the clock matter? Like, this is still their first opportunity to score. Does it matter? And they weren't operating as if it mattered, and they weren't calling timeouts. And we were seated in the front row of a section in the upper deck with a table set up, and there's Chiefs fans right behind us, and they don't know what's going on. We don't know if the clock matters or not. We're trying to tell them whether we know or not, and then all of a sudden the Chiefs scored the touchdown to win the game. So I can understand why there's some confusion. It's relatively new. It was implemented because of what happened in a Chiefs game against the Bills in overtime a few years ago in the playoffs. It's not something that, you don't. When we were growing up, it was field goal wins, sudden death overtime. So the fact that it changes from regular season to postseason, that's not a surprise. The only thing surprising to me about that is the fact that Kyle Shanahan didn't feel the need to address the rule changes when all the word from the Chiefs was, we talked about it in training camp. We talked about it 2 weeks ago. Yeah, we were fully prepared for it. And then the 49ers, of course, were not. So that was what was really interesting more than anything.
If the Chiefs don't three-peat, it will be because of blank. Firing all the heaters at you today.
Their offense stays largely the same, which was not, you have a supernatural quarterback, but your receiving core leaves a lot to be desired. Even your running backs room, Isaiah Pacheco had a fumble in that game, and I don't think he's going to have a very long shelf life. Clyde Edwards-Helaire never lived up to the expectation. So I think that's going to stay mostly the same. You're not going to have a bunch of departures, but you are looking at some departures on the defensive side of the ball. And that's where they could take a step back because, let's face it, that defense carried them in that game. Not so much against Buffalo, but definitely against Baltimore and definitely against Miami. And so if they're going to get weaker anywhere, it's the defensive side of the ball, so that would be why.
Talking with Nick Shook from NFL.com and the NFL Network. Super Bowl in the books. Season recap. The Chiefs are really good. What? I don't even like Mahomes got the ball at the end. Like, you knew what was going to happen. I mean, that's all there is to it. For the Cleveland Browns and the AFC North, there's a lot of questions. Browns-wise, I mean, it comes down, you got to see Watson on the field. And we talked about it earlier. You got to see Watson on the field. You got to see Watson on the field for the majority, if not all, of the season here in 2024. Got to see something. Can the defense replicate things? It was a feel-good story. You play 5 quarterbacks. Kevin Stefanski deserved to be Coach of the Year. The Browns, though, in free agency, a lot of work to do, a lot of pieces to replace on guys that had one-year deals.
A lot of pieces to replace and not a lot of cap space to work with. I know the thing that's going around the buzz today is somebody from The Athletic, it was either The Athletic or PFF, said that Nick Chubb's in line to be a cut candidate. And if you look at their cap situation, there's not a ton of spaces where they can, save some cap room without parting with some notable guys. I mean, they're $19 million over the cap, according to over the cap as of today. So they have some work to do just to get under the cap, and then to be able to, retain some guys. I don't even like to use the term upgrade, but kind of keep the status quo on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to take a lot of work for Andrew Berry to kind of keep this team solvent and competitive at the same time. So that's going to be tough. I hate to use this term, but I'm going to use it. The Browns last year going into this year seems like everybody enjoyed admiring a bit of a house of cards with the way that, the quarterback situation unfolded and everything else. But that's not to say that it's all going to fall apart this year. If you have the quarterback, like the Chiefs just proved, if you have the quarterback, you got a shot. It's just you need your quarterback to be on the field, for the majority, if not all of the season, and especially in the playoffs. And the Browns have not enjoyed that in the last couple of years with Watson. So, you can be encouraged by the fact that he was probably playing his best football as a Brown right before his season ended prematurely. And you can hope that carries over. And you can hope that Ken Dorsey's arrival is going to create a better offensive system for the Browns to be able to take advantage of Deshaun Watson's strengths. But still a lot of unknown. I feel like we're in a similar place that we were at this time last year, which is it's all going to come down to Deshaun Watson. And it will. Every team, it always comes down to their quarterback. And after a year in which we saw 66 different quarterbacks start a game for an NFL team, you want some stability in Cleveland. You don't want to go through 5 different starting quarterbacks next season. So it'll start with him. But again, the task is going to be on the shoulders of Andrew Berry to really, try to massage this cap as best as possible to really kind of work his way through where can I find spaces to make additions? Where can we save some money to create some space to make some additions and keep this team as competitive and as good as it was last year?
All right, I got about a minute left, and you can check out NFL.com, Shook's QB Index ranking, all 66 starting quarterbacks from the 2023 NFL season. A fascinating read, some good stuff. Want to get smarter, make sure you check it out on NFL.com. Madden, I know that you play. Will you play college football 2025 with the same vigor that you do the Madden game?
With more vigor than I do the Madden
Let's
game.
go.
I cannot wait to get into college football. I cannot wait. We are going to start a massive dynasty. Hopefully crossplay will be enabled like it was with Madden. Shout out to my people at EA, by the way. They had a great Madden party at the Super Bowl. I was fortunate to be able to attend that. They're great people over there. And I'm hoping that the game that they roll out is excellent and meets our expectations. I still play the college game from NCAA 14 just because I miss that so much. I think it's going to be a great way to get more fans into college football, and we're going to be running the league. And you better believe we're going to be full bore because all the people that dropped out of the Madden League in the last few years, they're going to be on board with the College Football League, and we'll be opening it up for more people to hop in. It's going to be a blast. You can find all the action live on Twitch, where I always play my Madden League games once the NCAA League starts.
Can't
we'll
wait.
Doing that too.
I can't wait, man. I'm getting a new video game system for the first time in I don't know how long because of this video game coming out in July. So I'm looking forward to it. Shooker, appreciate the time. I will touch base with you. Can't wait to see you in Indy next week, my friend.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait. Looking forward to it, buddy. See you then.
Thanks, Shooker. Appreciate it. That's Nick Shook. More to come. So much more. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily, 50 ESPN Cleveland. Uno, job well done. Nick Paulus, appreciate it. Hopefully, Nick Paulus, you are done for the day. Something tells me you're not, but I appreciate the effort today.
Always.
Emmett and Gerard are next. Are they both there today?
They are.
Oh, is Klimek there?
He is.
Oh, my God. JK. God help us. 3 to 6. The next level comes your way next. I'm Jason Gibbs. Thanks to Yellowstone for all his help. Thanks to Uno. Thanks to Nick Paulus. Thank you for listening. I'm Jason Gibbs. This is Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, a sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland.
You're down. Great show.